Good evening and welcome to this edition of Left, Right and Centre. I'm Sanket Upadhyay. We have decided to dedicate a major portion of this program to a cause, to an issue, to some pictures that we saw last year. I'm going to come to that in just a short moment to explain and put in perspective what we are trying to do. But let's begin with our top focus on Left, Right and Centre. There is a war, open war, between the centre and the state government of Delhi over the NCT Bill. Now, we've discussed this on various occasions in the past, but now that this bill, the amended bill, has been cleared in Parliament, where the central government has very categorically mentioned that one man is the government in Delhi, and that man is the Lieutenant Governor. The Delhi Chief Minister, as well as the Delhi government, wants to ask, why are we even here? If the government is LG, then why do we need a government in Delhi? The BJP has its explanation, the Aam Aadmi Party has its own explanation, and now there is an open war between two models, as quoted by Manish Sisodia. A war between the Delhi model and then a war with the BJP model. Which is a more appropriate model? What is happening in Delhi? The Aam Aadmi Party says that what the BJP is trying to do is that since it can't compete with the Delhi model, it's trying to rule Delhi by proxy. And that's what is happening with the help of this amended NCT bill. That debate is going to come up in just a short moment. And also on the show, remember those horrific pictures from last year, exactly around this time last year, where migrants were forced to move on foot, on rented cycles, back to their hometowns. How can we forget those pictures? We are getting a few people who have done a lot of work for these migrants, because yes, we need to move on, but we cannot forget their suffering. Cannot forget. We should not even attempt to forget. So on the show, we'll be getting you an exclusive interview with Sonu Sood on 1 year of the Exodus. He's written a book called I'm Not a Messiah, but the migrant laborers do call him that, the Messiah of the migrants. That interview in just a short moment. Now, earlier in the day, we spoke to the director of a documentary film called 1232 Kilometers. Now, this is a new documentary which is being spoken about a lot. This is a documentary that is winning and breaking hearts simultaneously, because people watch and then there are innumerable people who are saying that we broke down after watching this documentary. So we spoke to the director, what he had to say, Vinod Kapri. Now we'll make you hear the voice of the music director, noted music composer, Vishal Bhardwaj, on why he felt the need to make music for a documentary. Documentary is not known for music. Otherwise, it will become a feature film. Why did he feel the need to add music and give a song? There's Gulzar Saab in it. There is the voice of Rekha Bhardwaj. So he's going to join us in just a short moment right here on Left, Right and Centre. As we told you at the very beginning, let us not forget the suffering. We may want to move on. It's okay to move on. The laborers have also moved on. Many of them have come back. But let's not forget. That will be a wrong thing to do, and that will be the disservice. All right, let's shift our focus back to the top debate right here, the war over the NCT bill. What did the Deputy Chief Minister of Delhi say earlier in the day? Let's listen.
केजरीवाल जी फाइटर हैं। केजरीवाल जी इनके इन अड़चनों से, इनकी इन तिगड़मों से रुकने वाले नहीं हैं। जनता भी देख रही है इस राजनीति को कि किस तरह से मोदी जी, जिसको देश की जनता ने इतना सम्मान दिया, आज वो नेगेटिव राजनीति पे उतर आए हैं और केजरीवाल जी की बढ़ती लोकप्रियता से असुरक्षित महसूस कर रहे हैं। तो पॉलिटिकल भी जवाब मिलेगा, और साथ साथ में बाकी जो भी ऑप्शंस हैं सबको एक्सप्लोर कर रहे हैं। हम अपने लीगल एक्सपर्ट से बात कर रहे हैं।
All right, let me now introduce our guests this evening to talk us through this discussion. We've got Mr. Syed Nasir Hussain, Congress MP from the Rajya Sabha, Lalita Kumaramangalam, member of the BJP, Director India Foundation. Atishi is an MLA and spokesperson of the Aam Aadmi Party. We also have Aarti Jairath, senior journalist with us. Rajiv Nair, he is a senior advocate of the Delhi High Court. Thank you very much to all of you joining us. Let me first come to you, Aarti Jairath. I want to begin with the analysis first. Ms. Jairath, do you feel that this is a fresh confrontation of a very old festering problem which has resurfaced all over again, and also a very ugly manifestation of it? That now, as we understand, the Delhi government is actually an individual.
Yes, absolutely. Look, for the last 6 years, this tussle has been going on between Arvind Kejriwal and the BJP government at the center on who controls Delhi. And you remember, I mean, right from the beginning, they have been giving Arvind Kejriwal a really hard time by getting, by overruling his decisions, by, sort of getting into confrontations with him. And of course, Kejriwal is, sort of up the tensions by hitting back and doing dharnas and, sort of, calling the center names and so on and so forth. So this tussle has been going on. Now, we thought that this tussle had ended, firstly, with the Supreme Court ruling in 2018, which I think made it very clear that although Delhi is not a state, nevertheless, the LG is an administrator and he is bound by the advice of the cabinet, except in the 3 areas which remain under central purview, that is the security, law and order, police and land. Yet, I think, what has brought the tensions to the fore again is the BJP's defeat in last year's assembly polls, which, as you know, the BJP really upped the ante by sending Amit Shah out on an amazing campaign blitzkrieg. He was doing nukkad meetings all over Delhi. Yeah. And yet, Arvind Kejriwal romped home with, 62 of the 70 seats. It was a humiliating defeat for the BJP. They had polarized, divided, run a really vicious campaign, making Shaheen Bagh the focus and everything. So I think...
But did manage a significant rise in their voter percentage.
They did. But, the Aam Aadmi Party held on to its vote share, if you remember. Most of those votes came at the expense of the Congress. Yeah. So the Aam Aadmi Party held on to its vote share and held on to more or less the same seats that it had won 5 years ago. Correct. So I think that that's what's kind of exacerbated tensions again. And again, this whole tussle for who runs Delhi. Delhi is not really, it's not more than a municipal corporation, if you want to call it. But the fact is that it's the capital of the country. And it's very high profile, and I think it's very prestigious. And so this fight between the Home Ministry and Arvind Kejriwal, is what is causing this present thing. And, to my mind, I'm not a legal person. Rajiv Nair would be better placed to, look at the legality of it. Yeah. But the politics of it is, and, the timing is really interesting because next year are the MCD polls in Delhi. And, as you know, the BJP has been ruling the MCDs for the last 15 years. Correct. So this is going to be a huge test next year of the Aam Aadmi
politically it's going to be a huge test for the Aam Aadmi Party. But, Aarti, you mentioned very briefly, yes, and you mentioned very briefly about the legal aspects. And yes, who better than Mr. Nair to talk about that? Mr. Rajiv Nair, I want to come to you now. The central government says that the point of the confrontation between the Delhi government and the centre and all those files being sent, rejected, being sent back, dharna, protests, all of that was because the state government chose to interpret the NCT bill in a wrong way. And thus, more clarity has been brought in to end the ambiguity. This is what the government says.
I want to step back a bit before I answer this question.
Sure.
So, this amendment was pursuant to Article 239, capital A of the Constitution was amended, and after that, the amendment so incorporated brought into force the separation of powers. This was tested before the Constitution bench in 2018. Aarti is absolutely right. And except for three things, the government, elected government, could take all decisions. In the case of a disagreement with the Lieutenant Governor, then they will solve the same. And then finally the President in the case of a disagreement. But I want to ask you something more fundamental. What is it that suddenly has prompted this act?
2013.
Why is it that suddenly both houses have acted in the last 1 week to pass this amendment?
13, you are 15.
Why should there not be or should not have been a greater discussion or debate on what it will entail or what it so interpreted? Why should it not have been referred to a select committee? Why this rush? Why this hurry? And today, you have completely destroyed a democratically elected government and substituted, as you rightly say, by one man, the Lieutenant Governor, who's your own arm. So
No, but
now
then, Mr.
today,
Nair, what about the interpretation? The central government says that we are fixing the interpretation problem.
this is completely contrary to the Constitution bench judgment. If you are substituting, you are actually, this amendment is negating the judgment because you are substituting the government instead of the elected government to be the Lieutenant Governor. Now I ask myself, please just look at 239 capital A 4. They say there shall be a council of ministers to aid and advise the Lieutenant Governor. What will be the impact after this amendment? But please look more fundamentally at 6. It says council of ministers shall be collectively responsible to the legislative assembly. So where is this doctrine of separation of powers? You have completely obliterated the distinction. You have made the chief minister less than even the chief secretary. I don't think for a minute, I mean, they are better experts than me, but I'll be surprised if it stands the test of judicial scrutiny.
Okay. Very interesting legal aspect being discussed. Let me now come to the politics with Mr. Hussain as well as Atishi, who's now with us. Good evening, Atishi. I want to come to you now. What is your, if in a nutshell you were to tell us the 2 or 3 problems that you have with this clarity, quote unquote clarity, and ending of ambiguity that the central government has done, what would it be?
See, I think, Sanket, first of all, that the fact that the bill is unconstitutional has already been stated by Rajiv Ji, who was just speaking before me. And I think it's very clear that, as he rightly said, that the Constitution bench clarified what 239 AA says. And the position is very clear that apart from land, law and order and police, all other power lies with the elected legislature and therefore with the elected government and the cabinet. Now, it is exactly that clarity which the Supreme Court Constitution bench gave that this bill is attempting to take away. And I think that the issue per se is not legal, but the issue is political. The issue is political because after 2 successive attempts at electoral battles in Delhi, where the BJP has been successively trounced in Delhi despite their best attempt. I mean, all senior leadership of the BJP, the cabinet of ministers, members of parliament, chief ministers, all campaigned in full force against Arvind Kejriwal in Delhi, and yet despite that, they could not go beyond a single-digit figure. Despite attempts in the previous government to buy off MLAs, to break the government, there are new chief minister in place, they are not able to do this with the Aam Aadmi Party. And now, with Aam Aadmi Party expanding, with Aam Aadmi Party coming number 2 in the Surat municipal elections, with surveys showing that it will form the government in Punjab, with surveys showing that Aam Aadmi Party now will have electoral presence in Uttarakhand. So it is very clear that BJP does not want Aam Aadmi Party, does not want the Delhi model, does not want Arvind Kejriwal's model of governance to prosper. What they basically want is that the work that Arvind Kejriwal is doing in Delhi, which is getting recognition all over the country and across the world, should come to a standstill. And this is their method of doing so. It is a completely unconstitutional method, let me tell you that.
Okay. I'm going to go to Lalita Kumaramangalam also in just a short moment. But Mr. Hussain, you have heard the legal assessment, you have heard the political assessment of the Aam Aadmi Party. I want to know from you, what is the Congress Party's assessment? Do you feel that this will thus become a template where in a federal structure, you will have the center becoming more powerful as opposed to states?
Sanket, BJP has lost 6 elections in a row in Delhi. 3 against the Congress Party led by Srimati Sheila Dixit, and then 3 against Aam Aadmi Party from 2013 till now. 6 elections in a row. One should remember that. Then this continuous struggle between the Delhi government and the central government. If you look at all the bills that came up in the Parliament, whether it was Mines and Minerals Bill, whether it was the Delhi amendment.
Okay, we seem to have lost that video
Look at
and
all
audio
the bills
connection
that
on
have
Mr.
come.
Hussain. Yeah, he's back with us. Yes, Mr. Hussain, you were saying.
Now, if you look at all these bills, Mines and Minerals, if you look at Delhi Amendment Bill, if you look at today's Finance Institution Bill, all this bill has a very strong leaning towards the center. They want to have a strong center. It has scant respect to the federal structure of our constitution. They want to usurp all the powers of the states. This is how the central government is going about this entire issue. Here it is very, very clear. Lieutenant governor means the government. What is this? Is the lieutenant governor elected by the people of Delhi? How can he become the government? The representatives of the people who are directly elected people can only form the government. The Council of Ministers are responsible to the Assembly, not to the LG. How can the Assembly have prior permission before taking up any agenda in the Assembly? This is unheard of. How can the Assembly have the similar rules as the Lok Sabha? Every Assembly in the country, in different state, has different rules, and they have made their own rules. If you look at every section that they have amended, I'm sure that Mr. Raju Nair was very, very clear on that. Every section that was amended was against the federal structure, was against the representative bill, was against the democracy of our country. It was against the democratic spirit in which the elections and the assemblies run in our country. The way they have tried to do away and usurp power here, it is very, very clear they want to dominate Delhi. Not directly, but
so the intentions are being questioned by the Congress as well as the Aam Aadmi Party. I have Ms. Lalita Kumaramangalam now joining us of the Bharatiya Janata Party. Ms. Kumaramangalam, it's the intentions that are being questioned. Otherwise, why would you, with the help of a bill, undermine the elected government of a state and then conclude that in Delhi, government equals the lieutenant governor?
Hi, Sanket. I don't know if you all can see me. I think there's something wrong with the visual.
Yeah, but we can
hear me because I wasn't able to hear everybody else very clearly. Okay. Now, actually, I only heard part of what Mr. Rajiv Nair or Aarti or Mr. Hussain had said, and also Atishi. Let me say that what the BJP government has done today is to try and minimize the confusion and the sort of altercations that have been happening between the Kejriwal government and the central government. Despite the Congress MP being very critical of the BJP, I will have to admit that in the days when Sheila Dixit was in power, and it's quite true that the BJP hasn't been in power in Delhi for a very, very long time. This sort of bitter relationship was never there when she was in power. She was a congresswoman, I think, and you all may think that it's strange that somebody from the BJP is admitting this. But from what I remember, and I remember very well, Sheila ji always made it a point to be, not only approachable, but also on good terms with everybody in the central government, because she knew that Delhi being the capital, this is not an ordinary UT, as you know, Union Territory. That centre and the state needed to work together. An enormous amount of work was done during her time, let's admit that, and give her the credit for it. Now, after the Kejriwal government came in, whatever the reason is, there has been an enormous amount of acrimony. One may go into questions of whether we agree with Mr. Kejriwal's style of governance, whether he's done good work, not done. All of that, I think, is, it's really a political, as I think Atishi said, this is a political argument that will be used. Now, what we need to look at is the fact that being the government of Delhi, this constant skirmishes between the governments on both sides don't do the people of Delhi or the city of Delhi any good. Undoubtedly, the AAP's footprint is growing in the rest of India. I'm not saying no. In fact, I think it was on Basu's show that I actually congratulated her colleague for the good job, for the great showing they've had in Surat. But that is politics aside. The fact is that Delhi needs far more work than has been done. There has been a lot of work that has been done jointly by the centre and the Delhi government, notably the Delhi Metro, which is one of the best things about Delhi today. And many other such things have also been there. But because of the constant skirmishes between, and I mean skirmishes politically and administratively, governance in Delhi has taken a hit. And I think this amendment yesterday and today was to see that we could minimize that.
No, how will it minimize? Because that's the question. By making one individual the government, you have basically fixed it in your favor. Because who will the LG report to? The centre.
No, we
so that stronger central rule. Kejriwal has a simple question, and I want an answer from you, Ms. Kumaramanglam. Mr. Kejriwal has a simple question, and I'm framing that question for you so that you can give us an answer, and then we can continue the debate. What is the need of a chief minister in Delhi then, if the government is LG? How would you respond? We're not saying
the government is LG. The government is the person who is the coordinator, or rather the go-by person for the government of Delhi with the centre. Now, Delhi is the capital of the country. It's not, as I have already said, it's not just a UT like the other UTs in India. And we cannot place it on the same, the same arrangements for Delhi as you have for the various
here's the thing, Ms. Kumaramanglam, here's the thing. You say that there was great degree of acrimony between the Aam Aadmi Party as well as the LG, right? They were not coming to a consensus. It was leading to problems in Delhi.
More often than not, yes.
Absolutely. But don't you think that in a passage of a bill as crucial as this, to clear the air, you also need a greater degree of consultation, as Mr. Nair was saying, and not just railroad it through? Don't you think this will cause acrimony?
But Sanket, the problem that everybody has with every bill that is passed, because the BJP does have a majority in parliament, is that it is railroaded.
No, but then there will have to be a discussion,
to walk out of parliament, the BJP is not telling them to walk out of parliament.
How about sending it to a select committee, more discussion? It almost appeared as if you were in a hurry.
It has not been done illegally at all. And this whole argument that keeps going on and on all the time, that we need more time, we need...
Okay. So you've heard what Lalita Kumaramanglam had to say. Fair enough. You've made your points. Very quickly, let's take a counter to these points. Atishi, would you like to come in? You've heard what Ms. Kumaramanglam has to say.
Actually, Lalita ji, I am quite amazed at what you say. You say that there have been skirmishes, differences, etc. But all of that legal position was clarified by the Constitution bench of the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court Constitution bench clearly and unequivocally said that apart from land, law and order and police, the aid and advice of the cabinet ministers is binding upon the lieutenant governor. Then why, pray may I ask you, does the BJP need to go against the Constitution bench of the Supreme Court? Because the Supreme Court has very clearly said that the government is not the lieutenant governor. I think I would prefer if the BJP was to come up front and admit that we are trying to usurp power. We do not like Arvind Kejriwal. We do not like the work Arvind Kejriwal does. We do not like the face of Arvind Kejriwal. We do not want Arvind Kejriwal to grow politically. That's why we are looking to curtail his power. At least be upfront and admit it. Do not couch behind these legal arguments because they are a complete farce.
Okay. Very quick right to reply to Ms. Kumaramanglam and then Mr. Nair.
Atishi has the right to her own opinion. This is a democracy. Everybody will have their own opinion, and it's not necessary that I have to agree with her. Obviously, it's quite clear from both her tone and tenor that the AAP is not exactly on even keel with the BJP, and the accusation that we hate
Arvind
Kejriwal, I can
why
turn
you
around
went
to her.
against the Constitution.
Please let me
and
finish.
order.
I didn't interrupt when you were talking. Do me the courtesy of letting me finish. I can turn her own argument around and say the AAP hates the BJP also and hates Modi much more than probably we hate.
The pointed question, Ms. Kumaramangalam, is that why did you go against the Supreme Court order? The Supreme Court order very clearly mentions that the government is the elected government, not the LG.
You must understand that support at one. Don't forget that the Supreme Court, Delhi has had it for how many decades now? Before that, how was Delhi being administered? So let's not, I mean, if you want to split hairs, go back 40 years, not just 20 years when Delhi actually was made into a UT. Originally, it was said that Delhi would have a government where everybody reported directly to the LG. Because of lots of political pressure, etc., there was a bill, there was an amendment in the bill which made Delhi into UT with an
one by one.
Government.
If we speak together, we won't be able to understand a thing.
Delhi is very different from what it was 25
Yeah,
years
it's a
ago.
complicated
Let's
subject.
also
One
make
by
that
one.
very clear.
So here, let's clear the air. One moment. A political argument is being made. One moment. We have the solution right here on the show. Atishi ji, one moment. We have the solution right here on this show in the form of Mr. Nair. Mr. Nair, settle this for us. The debate over here is that the legislation
Lalita ji has made it very clear. Lalita ji has made it very clear that they are not going by the order of the Constitution.
Okay, let me.
She says, "Pehle ki baat dekho, pehle aise chalta tha." She has just admitted on your show that BJP does not want to
Mr. Nair.
Again, that's a matter of
Mr. Nair. So political arguments aside, Mr. Nair, the point that is being made is that this legislation goes against the Supreme Court's assessment or their own judgment. Where do you stand on this issue?
Sanket, I am a little surprised that Mrs. Lalita, who is representing the BJP in the government, did not even answer the legal question. Now, the legal question is that if there is a judgment in place, a constitution bench judgment in place which outlines the respective powers of the legislature and the executive, then can you supplant this without any discussion? No thought. She says Sheila Dikshit was a good chief minister because she cooperated with the central government. So the object is that anybody who doesn't cooperate with the central government can be the chief minister of a constitutional amendment which nullifies the Supreme Court judgment. What is incorrect to say that the government can mean the lieutenant governor? Then what is the purpose of an assembly? What is the purpose of Kejriwal? He might as well abdicate.
Okay, very quickly, a quick right to reply, Ms. Kumaramangalam, as I'm running out of time.
Yeah, everything that is being, all the accusations being leveled at me are quite purely their versions of what they think I'm saying. I am not saying that the Delhi government is not a government. I am not saying that only when they agree with the center. What I said about Sheila Dikshit ji was that she made sure that the Delhi government and the central government work smoothly in tandem. And it was the same form of government that was there when she was in power as it is now. The acrimony between the Delhi and the center has really sprung up only after the AAP came into power, whatever the reason for it may be. I don't think this is to show for that. But the accusation that we need more and more
well, Ms. Kumaramangalam,
discussion,
I don't know how.
No, I would also like to ask one legal question to end my thing. That is Parliament supreme to Supreme Court, or is it the other way around?
Wow. Parliament is supreme, yes, but within the framework of the Constitution, and it is for the Supreme Court to decide whether any law that Parliament passes.
Sure, I'm just saying if the purpose was
sure.
Okay, I've run out of time.
Sorry,
but
a hard stop on this discussion as I've run out of time. But see, the point is, if the purpose was to end the acrimony, it's really not served the purpose, has it? Because the acrimony has only just begun. Thank you very much to all of you all for joining us. We're stopping for a short break at this moment. When we come back, we have not forgotten the pictures from a year ago of the migrant exodus. We'll get you some interviews and exclusive conversations to remember what the migrants had to go through this last 1 year. Back in a moment. It'll be an absolute tragedy if we forget their pain. We are talking about the migrant laborers who had to walk on foot for many, many kilometers. It happened exactly around this time last year. 1 year later, have we made the mistake of forgetting those pictures? Nobody is saying that we should always live in the past. But we must remember what they had to go through as a consequence, sad consequence of certain decisions that had to be taken. I have with me one person who is hailed as the messiah of the migrant laborers, Mr. Sonu Sood. Mr. Sood, thank you so much for joining us. Good evening. I know you've written a book where you say, I'm no messiah, but the point is, a year later, you are still treated as one. I'm sure you must be the proud recipient of many such phone calls even now. Do they call you?
Thank you so much, Sanket, for your kind words. You've always been very kind. But like I said, I was just seeing those visuals when you're talking that it's been 1 year when we saw all that plight on the roads, people suffering on the roads, and we just thought that, is it over? No, it's not over. People are still trying to get back on their feet. They are jobless. There are a lot of problems they're facing, where they talk about health problem, education, insecurity, job problems. Still, it's a lot of things are happening, and actually the results people are facing right now. I get a lot of people at my doorstep every single morning who are looking out for jobs, who are financial problems. So I believe that 1 year, like we celebrate our birthdays, we celebrate our anniversaries, and we try to donate things on our special days. But I believe that this day we should remember that a lot of people in this country suffered a lot, and we should come out and support in whatever ways we can. And I think that's what I try to do every single day. And I need all the blessings, wishes, and every helping hand that can guide me to move ahead.
Sonu, what needs to be done from here on? I mean, there will be individual efforts that people like you will make, and you have been blessed with a lot of good wishes also in return. But beyond this, of course, institutions have to work. Do you feel that over the past 1 year, institutionally something has changed, or have we just forgotten about it because the crisis has gone? You don't have an exodus happening right now.
So I would say the crisis hasn't gone. Like I said, still people are trying to get back to the normal routine. But yeah, a lot of institutes have to come together to create a formula which, if something like this happens again, we are able to cope, or we are able to face that kind of situation. I've seen before pandemic, a lot of people used to do their bit for people, but this 1 year has taught this is not about doing one bit and getting away from your responsibilities. But every single day you have to do your bit. Maybe just a phone call to someone to help someone, sponsor an education, give a job to someone. Some kind of a bit you have to keep on doing it. It still will take 2-3 years to get back to normal. So I think there's more of humanity that we have seen in past 1 year, and this is a learning lesson for all of us, that it's not about ministers or the government doing their bit. I think every single individual have to come forward and do.
It's very interesting that you say that, Sonu, because I'm sure you also must be aware of this documentary which has been released on the migrant laborers just now, where it highlights the tragic circumstances under which laborers had to start walking. But there lies an amazing story of people with a heart in this country. Do you think that's been the biggest message of this tragedy? That we somewhere have a heart.
Yeah, it's very important, Sanket. Like you said, this documentary 1232 kilometer. So it's very easy to say 1232 kilometers. Imagine people who have to travel those 1232 kilometers with no food available on the highways, no money left, with little kids crying, struggling to go back, passing through different states, facing all the problems when you enter a different state. So I feel this is a lesson that we have learned, and we are still learning. And with all these stories, I think it takes you back to those memory lanes that you are human, and never forget that if you can help someone, just don't think twice. Just lend that helping hand and change life.
Well, Sonu, towards the end, I just want to say that keep being the messiah that you do not want to be called. So thank you so much for joining us right here on this program.
Thank you so much. God bless you, man. Thank you.
All right. As we move on, we first now get you an interview of the director of that documentary that we are talking about with Sonu Sood. We spoke to Mr. Vinod Kapri, And I asked him this question, where did he get the idea? Why did he feel the need to do what he did, to make a documentary like this? And he said that the idea came from a clip right here, broadcast on NDTV, where NDTV's Mukesh Singh Sengar interviewed the labourer for the first time. Right on this day last year, Mukesh Singh Sengar got an interview with a labourer who started crying on camera. And that was the beginning of the realization of the magnitude of the problem that migrant exodus is presenting in front of us. Let's listen in very quickly to that interview with Vinod Kapri. First of all, congratulations for telling us this story.
Thank you.
Why did you think of narrating the story of these 8 or 10 migrants?
You know, first of all, thank you so much, Sanket. It was so kind of you, nice of you, that you liked the documentary and it really touched you. But to be very honest, I think all credit goes to NDTV. Why? Because when lockdown was announced, there was only one channel which was following stories of migrant, and I would say I saw one video of NDTV by your reporter, and his name was Mukesh, I guess.
Mukesh Sengar. Yes.
Mukesh Sengar. So you know, I saw that video in which he shot that video in at ISBT, yes. And that boy was crying. That really touched me. And after that, I was thinking, who are these people who are forced to taking such decisions to walk for thousands of kilometers or to ride a bicycle? So I was very curious to understand that what are the circumstances which are forcing them to take such extreme decisions. But at the same time, I was also very curious to understand that what is their journeys like, how they are going to feed themselves, how they are going to, you know, if they fall ill, who is going to treat them, where they are going to take rest, who is going to help them. So I was very curious to understand their journey, whether these people will reach home safely or not. So this was my third attempt. I tried twice before this journey. I went with one mother and her 3 daughters till Aligarh, and then you know I was after that during my journey, it was my second day, I started coughing and there was some sneezing also, and I thought maybe this coronavirus has some you know I was very scared. So I called my wife and I told her that this is the situation, and she also suggested me that I should come back. But somehow I was very keen to go with them, some of them. And I was in touch with these guys, and then this is how it started.
All right, so it's 1 year of the lockdown and also 1 year of the migrant exodus, and who can forget those pictures? There's a new documentary on Disney Hotstar called 1232 Kilometers. We've interviewed the director of this documentary, but a very important person has given music, composed the music for this documentary. What moved him? What went in his heart to come up with such moving music for a moving documentary? I have with me Mr. Vishal Bhardwaj. Thank you very much, Mr. Bhardwaj, for joining us right here on NDTV. I want to ask you this question straight up. What moved you?
Actually, you know, what was happening during the lockdown, and we all were locked down, and we were hearing news on your channel and various other platforms, and it was heart-wrenching. You know, it was such a helplessness we all were feeling, that we couldn't do anything, we are not able to do anything, and the kind of, you know, the problems the migrants were facing. And that, you know, my heart cried for that. I didn't know how to express myself, my inner feelings for them. When this documentary came to me, and I found this an opportunity to express my inner feelings, that what I couldn't express at that time, I found this opportunity in this film.
Mr. Bhardwaj, there is Gulzar Saab also in it. There is Rekha ji also in it. There is everyone with all the creativity who are pouring their heart out in this documentary. Mr. Bhardwaj, it is usually said that documentaries, you don't have music being composed for documentaries. It's something which is a sole preserve for movies. How difficult was this experience? Because, you know, I watched the documentary and I can tell you it does not take away. In fact, it only adds to the value of the documentary.
Yeah, I think that was the challenge, because in normal circumstances, the norm is that documentary shouldn't have, the spiced up music or the things to spice up. It should feel as real as it can be. So the first difficulty was to convince the director. He came to me obviously for looking for music, but I convinced him for these songs as well. Documentaries have some background, they do have background scores, but they don't have songs. And Guldar Saab's poem, when he wrote this poem, he called me and he narrated that poem to me, that marenge to wahin jaakar jahan par zindagi hai. I loved this line, this expression, that marenge to wahin jaakar jahan par zindagi hai. So I had composed this song even before the documentary came to me.
Okay.
And when this documentary came, I thought this, one of the characters, in fact, is saying line in that line that कि मरना है तो वहीं जाके मरना है, नहीं तो या फिर रास्ते में मर जाएंगे घर नहीं पहुंचे तो ये इतना ज्यादा दर्दनाक जो ये पूरा हुआ एक साल. And then the other song Ore Videsiya, that Gulzar Saab, that he wrote for this documentary. And the other one was adapted for this documentary.
No, Mr. Bhardwaj, throughout the documentary, you see a strange mix of people who are scared of the police and not helping the Pardesis, as they've been referred to in the documentary by people. But then there are people who are pouring their heart out also with help, knowing that they're risking themselves, knowing that the police is going to beat them up. Do you think that this symbolizes India? That there will be people who will be scared, who understand for whatever reasons that the administration has done what it did, but at the same time will not shy away from helping?
I think more than India, it brings your, the confidence back in the humanity. That whatever happens, the humanity will not die finally. And it was really sad to see that the way police was, behaving with the migrants, and the way they were beating them up, and the way they, while they're going there, they're trying to reach their home back, they have to hide like criminals from the police. It was, they didn't have the money to eat, they didn't have the money to travel, and on top of that, they have to hide like they have done something wrong and they're criminals. At the same time, the people who are making samosas for them, people are, who are cooking for them, and they are also doing it stealthily. That they, they want to feed them, and the cycle wala who is, उनकी साइकिल जो ठीक कर रहा है, उनका सामान जो ठीक कर रहा है, तो ये सब इतना खूबसूरत है. आपका वापस ह्यूमैनिटी में आपका विश्वास वापस आ जाता है कि कोई भी हमें रिलीजन के नाम पे कितना बांटने की कोशिश करे, हमें कुछ भी डराने की कोशिश करे, आई थिंक हम लोग की इंसानियत जो है वो नहीं मरेगी कभी. उसकी एक होप तो बहुत बड़ी दिल में है, बाकी तो बहुत मायूसी है. ये होप बहुत है.
So you think that in this very, very disturbing situation that the laborers were in, or the migrants were in, was a story of extreme positivity?
Yes, and the determination, the way, they were moving against all odds, against everything, and the people who came out to help. It is such a positive thing, That's why I think it's painful to see this documentary, but it also, you get an overwhelming feeling of, that you're watching something like underdog, winning in some sports film. It's that kind of feeling you get.
Very well said. Very well said. Vishalji, I spoke to the director. I spoke to Mr. Kapri and I asked him what has this documentary changed for you in your life, and he said that what I've started doing now is that instead of saving names of people as paper wala and fish wala, I've started assigning them names. I've started inquiring what their names are. So that's one change that has come about in me. Through the process of composing the music, could you also witness some sort of change?
Yeah, I think it's not just one, the many changes. Now, when I go out to eat, I order, earlier, I used to order, or we used to order like 5 things, and if क्योंकि taste कर लेते हैं, बाकी खराब हो गया. I stopped doing that completely. I order such less food which I can finish, because what I saw during that lockdown, like the people were like, they were made to snatch food like dogs on the street. It was so sad to see.
Do you think, Mr. Bhardwaj, that in order to thank our stars, in order to thank God for what we have, we must never ever forget these pictures? Or do you think that we have kind of forgotten and put this behind us and we are moving forward? It's good to move forward, but it's also important to remember what we have been through, what these people have been through.
I think that will depend on each person's sensitivity, and human heart is such that it forgets very easily, and that's why we are able to live. But I think some things will never change for me personally, and for the people like me personally, that we are so privileged. We are so privileged that I feel guilty now. That that because I had the education, so I could reach the place I have reached. And I wish everybody gets the right to education, and they can also explore, because what I have achieved in my life, I think everyone can, if he's given the right education.
Well said. Thank you so much, Mr. Bhardwaj, for such lovely music.
You can call me Vishal. Yeah, because I'm talking with Sanket, and I am your fan. I love. I don't miss your programs. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. It's an honor to hear that. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Thank you.